What's going on, guys? I know it's been a while since I created any videos, but today's video is going to be a video which update to my indicators. I've been working on them, tweaking them a little bit, and I figured I'll just do an updated video on all my indicators. And what I'll do is in the description below, I'll try to do time stamps for each individual indicator. That way, if you have a question about a specific indicator, you don't have to sit through this whole video. You can just go down to that timestamp and it should take you to that particular indicator. And before I get started, if you're not a member of the Trading Decoded Discord, feel free to join us. There'll be a link in one of the corners if I remember or figure out how to do that. And your first week is free. Your free trial starts as soon as you jump into the Discord. There's no credit card information or anything like that you have to put in. Jimmy, who's the owner of the Discord, gets on chat from 9 a.m. to noon Eastern time daily, Monday through Friday, and talks about the charts and what he sees. It's mainly a SPY Discord for SPY or SPX, but we also trade futures in there, and some of us trade prop firms. So if that's something that interests you guys, you can feel free to check us out. Also, there'll be a link somewhere on this page with Jimmy's book. He wrote a book about trading psychology and his strategy, and it's a really good book. You can purchase it on Amazon. There's an ebook version of it, and it's a pretty good book that gives you a lot of good information out there. All right, so now the indicators. This is Monday's chart, and what I'll do is I'll talk about the indicators, put them on the chart, and kind of give you a quick rundown on how I trade with those specific indicators. The first indicator I want to talk about is the Jimmy's QQQs and Q levels. And to find this, if you're a Trading Decoded member, these indicators, you get them by joining the Discord, and you could go on to WAP and get the indicators. And when you do that, they will be under the invite only. I got these listed under the favorites just because I got a ton of the invite only, because I didn't realize every time I save indicators, it puts them in there. So any indicator I create, it kind of throws it in this area. So you can go into your invite only and it'll show probably the ones with these locks on it will be in there. And if you do go through WAP, get it, and it's a red lock, what you'll have to do is completely close down your trading view and then reopen it, and then it should have the green lock on it to give you access to it. The first one will be the Jimmy's QQQs. I trade futures, so that's what I'll kind of talk about here. And what this indicator does is Jimmy, every morning, he will plot his QQQ levels. And what I do is I'll punch them into this indicator and it converts them over to the NQ chart. That way I can use his support resistance levels on the futures when I trade. And it's pretty easy to do. You just punch in whatever numbers he has and it'll populate on the chart. Another way you can do it is if you were a member of the Discord and you go over here to the FIBS daily values, I post all the levels here. And for the NQ, what you would do is you'd come down here. Let's see if I can find, this is Monday's chart. So Mondays would be what, the 19th, I think? It was Monday, 19th. Let's go up here to the 9th. All right, here's the 19th. So a quick way of doing it, after I post these levels, you can come here to the target levels, hit copy, come back over here to the indicator, and on the target numbers, you'd hit paste, and it'll paste them in there. And then you can do that for each one. His pre-market lines and his target lines, or his pink lines. So when you paste that stuff there, you'll see that it also, here I can delete the other lines here real quick. And when you paste those lines, they'll plot them on your chart for you. It's the same thing as whenever if you want to individually type each one, but it's just a quicker way for the members of the Discord, if they're trading futures, to get Jimmy's lines on their chart, their futures chart. I also have a indicator here for the ES, which will convert his SPY lines over to the ES if you trade ES, and it's done the same way. Again, if you were to go to the Discord, as you can see over here, the ES levels, you do the same thing, just highlight them, copy and paste them, and it'll put them right into the indicator, and it'll plot them right on your chart for you. So that's the Jimmy QQQ levels on there, that indicator, and how to get that on your chart. Now to trade this, you could go line to line if it breaks and retest, but they're basically support resistance lines. I don't trade specifically with these lines, but so I'm not going to talk about how to trade with them, but you use them as support resistance areas. All right. So the next indicator I'm going to talk about will be the FIBS call put. So with this indicator, the whole idea of it is it's going to plot the most recent support resistance areas and draw a line, and you'll see it'll designate one a call and one a put area. They're not perfect, so it might not pick out, the exact, top or bottom, and it's adjustable, and I'll talk about that. And down here in the bottom left corner, you can move this around, however, in all the four corners and into the middle of the chart over here on the right side. It keeps track of the session wins and losses, and that's starting at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And then the total is the total running of this indicator. Of course, it only can go back so many candles. So currently, out of roughly 317 trades, 267 of them are wins and 50 of them are losses. Now, let me tell you how I determine the wins and losses. The way the wins are set up is if it was to break one of the levels, the call level or the put level, and move at least 2 points into profit, that's considered a win, because that's how I trade. I trade a minimum of 2 points. If it moves 2 points, that's where my stop loss goes. And if it continues, I have a trailing stop loss that'll follow it up. Any pullbacks more or less get me out, but it lets you know that 2 points is the minimum, but it keeps track of the average of what you could have made. So the totality of the indicator would have been 12 points if you were to hold. Not saying each trade's going to give you 12 points, but on average, it's saying that 12 points for your win. And the loss is set up, I believe I have it set up for 5 points or 6 points is a loss when it happens. Okay, so this indicator here, you open up the settings. Obviously, you could turn it on or off, and the look back will determine how many or how often it's going to move your call put lines. So the smaller this line is, it's going to move and replot the lines a lot quicker. And the further away, like if you go 10, it may only plot 1 a session or 2 a session. But so the higher the number, the less it's going to plot those lines and move the lines. And then the label offset, you'll see when it plots it, you can adjust the label offset, how far you want it to move. Down here where it says futures PM call put, that means when you check that box, it's going to keep track from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern time, and it'll keep track of your call put, your win loss ratio, and it'll keep it plotted until 10 a.m. If you're a SPY trader and you want to do it on a SPY, it'll be SPY, and it'll start from the pre-market and again till 9 a.m. If you want to do it all day long, where it keeps track of the trades all day long, you click on the daily, and it's going to keep track from 9 a.m. till market closes at 4 p.m. And then if you're an overnight trader for futures, you could click on the overnight, and it's going to start at 6 p.m. till midnight and keep track. the show will let you show. I believe it keeps track of this chart there. So if you don't want to know like your win losses and all that stuff, or if it just takes up too much, you can take that off. And whenever it crosses the line, it'll show a plus or a minus, whether it was a winning trade or a losing trade on there. And then the hours here, you can mess with them and decide, hey, I want to change the hours, but I kind of got it pre-plotted with these up here check boxes. If you check them, it'll keep track of it. Take profits adjustable. I have it set for 2 because that's how I trade, and the stop loss is 5. And obviously this table position, like I said, you can move it from the bottom. We'll say top right. It should put it up here. So it's user adjustable wherever you want to put it. Middle of the page, I guess. But I'll just put it. I'll do middle right. It'll be up here. That way we could kind of keep track of it as it's moving. All right. So that's the inputs of it. So at 9 o'clock it starts keeping track. So right at 9 o'clock here, it determines, and you see how it plotted that line, but then on this candle, the way TradingView replay works, it's like a 2-step candle. So this line may have plotted and then disappeared. How I trade it is I wait for that line to lock in. So like that specific trade I wouldn't have taken because it did not lock at that line in. It'll lock in. You'll see what I mean when it locks it in. All right, so this one here plotted, that candle opened and closed, and it locked in, it didn't move. So this right now I would put an order in on this 21,214. Before price even gets there, I would place an order up here on that line, expecting if we break that line, it's going to move at least 2 points, above that line to take profits. And then if this line moves and locks in, I'll move my order. I don't want to go too fast because then if the line plots, it may plot and break. And all right, so here's the put line. That one plotted and it didn't move, so I would put an order here on this put line now. So if it crosses the call line or the put line, it's automatically going to buy me in, and I'll have a stop loss, which I'm going to put a line up here. I'll put it to, we'll change it to yellow. This is going to be my stop loss on there. All right, so that, and come close to it for a call level. All right, so this line pushed down, it didn't cross, so I would have push my order here, and then this line here, it actually crossed. So what I would do on that line would be, when it crosses, my put here or my stop loss appears somewhere up in here somewhere. It's like 50 ticks away initially, and then I would grab it and move it. So when it crosses this line, what I do is I automatically put at a 2-point stop. As soon as that price moves above that 2 points, I'll drop it and lock that in. And then after it moves 13 ticks, it's going to auto trail this. So if a candle moves very quickly, my stop loss is going to, auto trail it and follow it. And then when any pullback, it's going to get me out. I never get the full run here because of the auto trail. So like here, for example, if it pushed down hard, I'd initially have my 2 points, lock it in. The auto trail kick in and maybe stop me out right about there because it, was pushing down and maybe pull back, or maybe even earlier than that. But that's how that's set up. And as over here, you could see it broke through, it won. It's saying that, that could have been a 19-pointer if you would have stayed in it the whole time. Of course, like I said, I don't do that. And you'll see these will move between 9 and 9:30. They lock in at 9:30. They don't move anymore. All right, so you see how the put line moved down there. So then, draw this down. There'd be the put line. We cross it. We'll get in. And then See how the call line dropped, but then it didn't lock it in on that next one, so I wouldn't move it until it locked in. So I'd keep my call line up there for my order in. The put line moved and locked in, so now that becomes my new. If we break below it, I'm going to go ahead and get in. All right, so this line here, it locked in. It did not cross it to the upside. As you can see, it didn't cross it, but it did cross the put line to the downside. So same thing, it crosses it. I drag my stop loss to 75, would be what, 77.25, so it'd be 75.25. Drop it, guaranteed 2 points. And then as it pushes down, the auto trail will kick in and stop me out somewhere in there. Again, if you would have tried to hold that trade, could have got the full points. And this is why I do the auto trail. Here's a perfect example of why I don't try to hold for home runs. I'm going to wait until this, goes way down here or a different support or resistance level down this way, because this happens a lot. It'll cross it and then it'll pull back up. And that's why I lock in those 2 points, because no matter what, even if this pulls back on me, I'm guaranteed those 2 points. Slippage and stuff, it might be like a 1.5 or a point or whatever, but it's still green. It's not, a losing trade. Where if I would keep my stop loss up here, it pulls down. I'm wanting to get a home run, and all of a sudden it pulls back up. Now I'm down, a couple $100 instead of being up, $100 or $80, the minimum of 2 points. I'd rather be up a little bit than have it pull back like that. That's why, how I trade, and that's how this is set up for the wins and losses, and the ratio is so good because it's only looking for 2 points, and I consider it base hits. And, you can get, how many times are home runs hit in a baseball game? Sometimes, you can get a pretty decent amount, but there's way more base hits in a baseball game than there is home runs. So that's kind of how I trade. I trade for base hits. So this is 925, and what I do at 925 is I'll switch over to Jimmy's call put, but I'm going to continue on with this indicator before I go into the Jimmy's call put, just to show you how it'll move and stuff throughout the day, or till 10 o'clock. So again, this is 925. Normally I quit trading them, but we'll just say I didn't quit trading. Same thing, it'll be order on a call, order on a put. All right, so we break above, and just like I explained earlier, that's a minimum of 2 points. It pushes up even further. On average, it's saying, you could have, got 12 points out of that. So here, what I would do here, okay, so it crossed up. The call line didn't move anywhere. It stayed where it's at. So when this happens, if price is above that call or below the put line, how I would play this now would be, okay, if price was to move back below the call, I would then put an order back on that call line. So for here, for an example, it broke below it, put another order on the call for the upside. And then when price breaks above it, do the same thing as I do before, just trail it up. As price moves up, get my 2 points, and then let the auto trail kick in. All right, so here, as you can see, it locks it in at 9:30. There's the call put lines. Normally, I don't play these from 9:30 to 10, but we'll see, say you wanted to, and you'd have an order on this put line, but not on the call line, to see what happens. All right, 10 o'clock comes, and all right, and as you can see, it disappears on there. The lines are still there, but you can come over here and I believe it's this one here, and it should make them disappear. They're still there. But anyway, you can just turn it off at 10 o'clock, but it should have cleared those lines. So that might be something I'll have to work on. I'm glad I'm doing this. That gives me something to know what I have to do. But that's the FIBS call put on there, and how I trade those specific call puts. All right. Let me back up now to 925. These lines are my line. Oops. Lines okay. There's my line. Okay, there's my line. I'll move these up here because these are my like entrances and stuff. So now at 925 with Jimmy, oh, this isn't 925 yet. But there's 925. So at 925, what Jimmy does every morning is he gives you a call line and a put line at 925. Sometimes he gives a target of where he believes if we cross this line where it's going to go, and sometimes he doesn't. Or I just don't hear it because I'm too busy typing this out, and again, I type it in the chat. So it's the same thing as his indicators up here. I punch in, his call line, I punch it in, his put line, punch it in, target, punch it in, and it plots it on the chart here. And you can adjust it if you're a SPY trader, ES trader, and he says it on the ES. You can also do it for the ES. So that's his call put lines. Now, same thing as my call put lines. What I'll do here is I'll enter the trade. Like right here, I would have a call order in, and then the put order in. So depending on what time he said this put line, if he said it when price was above here before it crossed, I would have got in on that trade. When it crossed down below it, I would have made my entrance on that one and treat it the same way as I do the other ones. 2 points, trailing stop loss kicks in. But because sometimes he'll be talking and about something else or whatever, and he may not say it exactly at 925. So it just depends on when the call put line was in. But it's roughly, 925, 926-ish is when he says his call put lines. All right, so market opens here, it pushes up. Again, I'd have my order in on that call line prior to price even moving up. It breaks it, get the minimum of 2 points. If it pushes up hard, the auto trail kicks in. It'll follow it up. Again, I never ever get the full run because NQ's big on it'll push up. Even if it's pushing up hard, it'll have some pullback somewhere. And my auto trail is so tight that I believe it's like three or four ticks away as it's pushing up. So every time it moves one tick, it'll push up. It'll stay 3 or 4 ticks behind whatever the current price is. So I never get the full run. But when it pushes up hard, I can't move my personal stop loss up quick enough as an auto trail. So this auto trail push up and maybe somewhere in here or even less than that, okay, I get that. And same thing as before, I'm worried about is taking those base hits. Put line, I'd keep my order in here to put line. Now, if we cross back below the call line, I'll put an order in on the call line if we cross, for a cross back up. And that all depends on the price action. Say we push down hard and we're pushing way down, then I'd be like, you know what, I'm not going to put an order in here. But if we just break below this and it's like hesitating up in here, I'd say, okay, I'm going to hurry up and put another call line in because this is just a pullback and we're probably going to continue to back to the upside. And I do this till 10 o'clock also because the 10 o'clock candle can be crazy wicky and stuff. So right there, 10 o'clock, obviously it's going to stay up there. So the put line didn't play, so I would cancel my order on that put line on that trade. But that's how the call put indicator works and how I trade with the call put indicator. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to put them down on in the chat below. And if you're on the Discord, you can DM me and I will get with you on that. I do chats at least once to twice a week and kind of go over the weekly call put scenarios and how I traded them and that kind of stuff. So if you're a member of the Discord, just look for in the events tab. I usually plot that in the events tab. Another indicator, it's not on here, so you find it again, same place, is the key levels. So with the FIBS key levels, what this indicator does is, let me get rid of these lines here. This is a line. I think that's all my lines, right? So what this indicator does is it'll plot the previous day's high, mid, and low. So this is Monday, so that should be Friday's high, Friday's midpoint, and Friday's low. So it plots the previous day's, important high lows. It'll also plot the close of Friday. That way, if you're a gap player, market closed here at 4 p.m. or 3:59, the closing candle at 3:59. So we have a gap to the upside here. And that's one way of playing a gap, is just by the market close. So it'll show you that, and I have it labeled as market close gap. And then overnight, it gives you, if you're a futures trader, it'll give you the overnight high and overnight low of the overnight session. And then pre-market, it keeps track of pre-market from, I believe, 8:30 maybe, because 8:30 sometimes we get the crazy news. So I didn't want to keep taking into consideration the full pre-market, because some of the pre-market from 4 o'clock on, it's kind of dead. But at 8:30 it definitely starts picking up. So that's kind of where I have it determining the pre-market high, pre-market mid, and pre-market low starts at 8:30. And market open, it keeps track of, okay, this is where the market opened at. So in the indicator itself, all right, you can turn on or turn off levels. So the pre-market high, obviously I just went over that, so I'm going to turn them off. The market open, I'm going to turn it off. The previous day, I'll go ahead and turn those off, and then overnight. And then there's a gap. Now, if you are an orb player, an opening range player, what you can do is turn on the orb high, mid, and low, and then the opening range, this is going to determine how, like right now it's set for a 30-minute orb play or a 30-minute opening range. If you're a 15-minute player, you can set this to 9:45, and it'll plot, the low, the mid, and the high of first 15 minutes. And then if you're an orb player, you can play that. And if you want to even go smaller, or say you're a 5-minute orb guy, I would probably take the mid off of it, but it's up to you. You could play, hey, if we break at level, you're going to go ahead and get in. But that's this opening range, and it's determined, it'll show you on the orb here. So if you're a player there with orb, you can use that. Now, if you do it at night on futures, you could change this to 1800 and 15. And what it'll do is, if we come back over here, it should plot those levels. Well, that's Friday night, so we'd have to come the whole way back to here. Oops, it's 4 o'clock. Let me do it this way. Select a date. We'll go Thursday at 8:15 or 6:15. My bad. That's so at night. If you want to play it at night, you can obviously play that, for the night session too. And also the good thing about the market close, because at night you can be, play that gap, because this is the close of the previous day. And if you're trading after hours and you're a gap player, you can say, okay, I'm shooting for this gap or whatever. So that's kind of what the key levels there will show. The session gives you, which I'll probably just leave it where you can't adjust the inputs there. And the session is from 9:30 to 4. Because this session here is going to determine all these other boxes. So I'll probably get rid of this to where it just shows the opening range. Now, another thing you can do is, let me go back to market. What was that, Monday at, let's say 9:45. I'm going to turn off orb. And what you can do is keep this untested levels, the high, the low, and the close. And what that is going to show, if you only have the market close checked, it's only going to show the gaps of that haven't been filled yet. So every blue line is a gap that hasn't been touched yet. That's a market close which we haven't pulled back. We closed or we started above it. So these here are all gaps that we have to come back and fill eventually. And then if you have the pre-market, if you have the previous day high and low checked, it's also going to show those that haven't been tested yet. The previous day high lows that weren't tested. So I personally like it not for that, just for the market close. So I know where there's gaps that need filled on that. And you could change the offset of, again, the labels and stuff like that, and extending the line, the thickness of the line. If you want dotted or dashed, you could change that, all that kind of stuff in there also. But that's the key levels. It kind of gives you that type of information if you choose to want that one. All right. And then the next one is my version of Jimmy has an indicator that's called the A+ setup. And with the A+ setup, the way he has it is it's set up for SPY, changes to NVIDIA. That's on the 1 minute. QQQ is 3 minutes. So what this indicator does is it keeps track of all these tickers, and if they're all green at the same time, you'll see them plot a green arrow up or a red arrow down when all those are in confluence. So let's see here. All right, let me back it up. Right here, it's saying that ADD or SPY on the 1 minute, SPY on the 5 minutes red, NVIDIA on the 1 minute candles red, the Qs on the 3 minute are red, and ADD on the 1 minute chart is red. It's saying that all these are red at that specific time. Now, it's not a buy sell indicator, so it's not saying buy in right here. It's just letting you know that right now everything's plotting, red. And as you can see, it flipped to green here in 2 candles later. So can you use it as a entrance? Maybe, maybe not. But specifically with this one here, it just gives you more confluence. If you're in a trade, if it's coming up on a support resistance level and then it's plotting, where they're all green, you might say, okay, it's probably going to break a resistance point at this, particular time or not. So what I did was I basically created that indicator, but put it, I call it on crack. I made that indicator on crack. And as you can see over here, it'll keep track. You can see, gives you a visual of, okay, SPY right now currently is red on the 1 minute, it's green on the 5 minute, NVIDIA's red on the 1 minute, Qs are red, and ADD's printing green currently on that. And what I added to it was, if it throws off that indicator, say you were to buy in at that specific, so it'll have a stats table too up here or somewhere. It'll show the stats of it also. I guess when I turned it on, it erased them. We'll have to see. Okay, so right there. So it's saying it plotted to the downside because everything lined up and they were red. And if you would have entered whenever it showed, it fired off, you could have got a possible of 18 points on that. But again, how I would trade it would be the same way I trade the call put and everything else. I'd have the 2 points and then an auto trail that would, kick in and move it. So this is not saying it plotted at the bottom, it plotted at the complete top. As this candle's plotting, at any point when this candle's plotting, if all this is red, it should fire off, the flame saying, hey, we're pushing down here on this specific candle, and everything is red. And if you choose to enter, I'm not saying to do it, but I wanted to see how good, how bad it would be if, entering in or not. The way this indicator works, though, with the statistics, it's not perfect because what will happen is it kind of takes the close of this candle, and if there's a wick below it, it determines, okay, you got in where the bottom of that candle would have been, and you got some of that win. So it's not perfect with the statistics wise, so I really wouldn't go by them on there if you choose to do so. But as it's going, again, you'll see if it plots, and it keeps track of the very last trade. So if obviously we know that it plotted over here, but since I just turned it on, it keeps track of whenever I first turned it on. We'll see if anything will turn all red or all green here. Again, on replay, it's not the best. So here it's saying, okay, everything was green. Not saying exactly, it's hard to determine on a replay when all this was green. So if it was green at the start of this candle and you got in, you could have got a pretty decent win on that. Or, the way, again, it's keeping track of this take profit is getting in at the close of that candle, and technically there's a wick above it, so it's saying that you could have got 19, so that's not exact. But on that specific trade, it's saying you could have possibly gotten, a win on it, depending on when it plots at. And then, okay, there's a red. It's saying, I guess, same thing. And as you can see, it eliminates the previous one, and it just shows the most recent. And again, the line's showing that getting in at the close of the candle, again, with the way the replay function is on TradingView, it's not shown exactly. So technically, this line could have been somewhere up here on this red candle when it plotted all, that fire plotted, and that could have been your entrance when you got in. Again, I'm not telling you that this is a entrance exit indicator, but if you wanted to try it out for yourself and test it, you could. And that's kind of how I have it set up. Like currently right now, the indicator that I have out for everybody, it's just called Magnificent 7. And it's basically just like Jimmy's, where it'll plot the triangles, but it also have over here, which you can go into here and adjust it. So again, ADD 1 minute, SPY is on a 1 minute, SPY is on a 5 minute. And you can adjust, let's say you trade a totally different ticker and you don't want to look at SPY or something like that. You want to look at something totally different. You can. And, for Confluence, you can change that to whatever you want on the Confluence. You can, have up to 7 more or less. But, and then same thing over here with this ticker. You can, make it tiny to where it's super small. You probably won't be able to read it. So if I'm on my phone, I kind of have it, it's tiny. If I'm on my computer, normally I have it set to normal or large. It depends. because sometimes this here will show all green or all red before the triangle will plot. So if I want to use it, depending on, support resistance wise and what price is doing, I might say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and, maybe get in even before that plots. Technically, it's not an entrance exit indicator. Again, use it at your own risk. All right, so that's the Magnificent Seven. And then my baby indicator, this is the one that, the Fibonator. So when you click on it, you have to type agree, which is all lowercase. I have uppercase. It has to be all lowercase. You type agree and apply, and it'll plot it on your chart. All right. Let me get rid of some lines here. Delete. Delete. All right. We'll come back here to 936. All right. The way this indicator is set up. So during the day, you just want to show the fibs. If you trade futures and you're trading after hours, you click on the after hours, and then it's going to determine when it's going to initially plot the fibs. It'll be from 6 p.m. to 6:15 is going to be the initial plot. So currently, at just show the fibs, the initial plot of the fibs are from 9:30 to 9:45, the first 15 minutes, and then it's going to plot the fibs automatically. And it'll move the fibs automatically also. If you want to show the price on the line, you keep that checked. Obviously, if you don't, you can uncheck it, and it should remove the price, and it just gives you the fib numbers. I like the price because when I enter, I usually enter on a specific fib line, and I want to know what price that is. All right, so that's the fib part of it. It also has moving averages if you trade moving averages. This is like a multi-indicator in one. So if you want to watch the moving averages, you could click that, and there's up to 4 different moving averages, and you can change it to whatever you want. SMAs, EMAs, Hall, you could change it to whatever you want on there, and the color. 920 is kind of the big one that people trade. It also has VWAP here. If you want the VWAP on your chart, it'll show the VWAP on your chart. And if you play the cross and the double crosses, which somebody used to play, it was part of our Discord, it'll plot that too. Like here it crosses up. This X meant that it was a double cross. If you know what I'm talking about, you understand what it is. I'm not going to go into it. So it'll plot that for you. Your supply demand guy, it'll plot your supply demand zones on the chart also. And these are default at 10. If say you want supply demand lines, you could put this at 1, and you'll see it'll shrink these down to basically a line. So now you can have a support resistant line if you want on there. Again, you could change the colors and all that. Show the swings, should show swing points, high lows is basically your lower lows, lower highs, levels. It kind of will plot that on there. I'm glad I said that because I have an indicator specifically for that also. Trend baseline and trend signals. This kind of gives you a trend following type strategy. I believe one of these is a 200. So if we're above the 200 in the color, and signals, if you're one of those people that want to, buy now type thing, it'll have that. I don't use it for that, but I know people like buy and sell. I put it in there. Again, if you use it at your own risk. I'm not saying it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm just saying that you could use it. What I use this indicator for is the fibs. I'm a fib trader. Used to be. Now I trade mainly the call put. So at 9:45, the fibs, you'll see them, they'll plot. This is pre-market, and the pre-market here is determined from 9:30 from the previous day, so I don't use it after hours with this, unless if I do trade it after hours, I put the after hours on. So at 9:45 here, you'll see the fibs are going to plot. All right, so the fibs will plot. Price is moving up, so it plots the fibs correctly from, low to high. And here's where a lot of people get confused with how do they draw the fibs. Some people draw them in reverse. So think of it this way. So if price started down here and pushed up here, the 618 is like the golden zone of the fib, where it's a bounce point. So when price pulls back, it's pulling back, if it pulls the whole way back here, it pulled back 90%. So if you were to reverse these fibs, where this line here is going to be 10%, so it's saying that price pulled back 10%. No, it pulled back to the 10%. But the way these fibs are drawn, the pullback is determined, it pulled back 23.6% roughly here. 50% is going to be 50 on however you draw the fibs, but the 618 is more than the 5%, right? So it's going to show you that this pulls back to that 618 area. So it plots them correctly. All right, how I trade these fibs or these extensions here. I'm looking for price to push up above these extensions, and when it does, I'll place an order for a pullback. So I like to play counter trend when I'm using these fibs, and we'll show you here in a minute. Let me get a line here to where, if I enter it, it'll be green. Give me a line that's going to be, I'll just do white for stop loss. All right, so here, price pushed up above it. Yep, it continued. So when price pushes up above that, what I do is I'll put an order in on this 10%. So if price pushes back down, it's going to buy me in. As you can see, price never did push down, it pushed back up. So it would have never bought me in. And as you can see with the fibs, they replot and it's all automatic. You don't have to go hands-on. The only hands-on you have to do is add the indicator and determine if you want, the show fibs on, and it's going to do it all the movement on its own. So how it works is when price moves above the 272 and closes, that becomes the new zero line. Traditionally, when fibs plot and break the zero line and it breaks it, say right up in here, you'd say, okay, I'm going to replot the fibs to, that's going to be my new zero line. But the way I play these fibs aren't like that. Again, I'll be waiting for, let's see if we get one up here. All right, so here we do. Back here. All right, so price pushed up above the 10%. So when it crosses above that 10%, I would put an order in here. It continued up, crossed above the 169. When it crosses above that 169, I would put an order in to come back down to the downside now. So prices pushes above it. I'll put an order in for a pullback. All right, it did. It pulled back. And I do this the same way as I do all mine. I'm looking for 2 points and the auto trail kicks in. So, the 2 points wherever it would be, and then the auto trail would kick in, and, so on and so forth. All right. And that's how I'd play that candle. So obviously I'd probably been out of this one here. And if I'm out of that trade, what I would do is I'd put an order in here at the 10%. So I'd expect it because it closed here below this 169. I'm looking for it to push back down. Here it did. It boom, it pushed back down. Same thing, 2 points, or the auto trail will kick in. Now we're below the fibs. At 10%, I wouldn't have any order in because we're below it. That's okay, no order. All right, we crossed above it. I'd put an order in at this 10%. We closed, it pushed up, closed, didn't come back and fill me. So right now I just have my order in. All right, so that candle pushed down. It would have filled me, and then did it go 2 points or not? 38.4, so it went 4 points. So that would have been at least a 2-point winner, if not more. So I'd be out of that trade. That would have been in and out. Price is above it again, so I would put an order in on the line. So that time, price looks like it would have filled me and hit my stop loss. So 388.75, what was the low of that candle? Yeah, so it would have pulled back, filled me, and then pushed up, and it would have hit my stop loss, and that would have been a loser on that trade. But that's how I trade the fibs with the extension plays, is I use these extensions, and I'm looking for pullbacks on them. Another way I trade the fibs is I look for consolidation. Let me back up. Okay, so the fibs plotted here. Now we're in the extensions. So if we're in the extensions, I don't play the consolidation. All right, so here, you see how price is consolidating around this 10%. It's breaking. Every time it breaks, as long as it's like, okay, we break at least for 2 points and break back above it for 2 points. And I'm looking for at least 4 candles worth of chop. Chop more or less is how I would trade this. So technically, we have 1 here, 2, 3, 4. So let me pull back here. We break above it. We break back below it. And is that 2 points? Yeah. We pull back above it. So we broke below it. And then if we broke back above it more, we broke back below it here. That would have been 2 points. We broke back above it. So since we closed below it, what I would do here in this chop would actually on that 10% play back to the upside since we're below it. And we've been chopping around this line until, say it would have broke above this 0 line and continued. Obviously, I wouldn't be playing because it would have been like this trend. There's nowhere in here on a specific line that I would trade because, here it's tried to do it, but, 1, 2, 3 candles, it almost did it. But, I'm looking for here, probably would have been a start. So I probably would have had an order into the downside on this 236 right here. But since it pushed up, I would have canceled that order. So again, here it's below it. I put my order in at that 10%. All right, we break above it. Same thing, follow it. Now I'd be out of that trade. I'd put an order in for a pullback because if we look, every time, as long as it stays below that 0 line, it pulled back down below that 10%. So I'd be playing, okay, if we break below that 10%, I'm going to get in again with the order on that specific 10%. Boom, it worked there. So now we actually close below that 10%. I'd put an order in back to the upside on the 10%. If we break back up, it's going to buy me in and I'll get in on that. All right, so it did. It pushed up. Same thing, 2 points. Or the trailing stop loss kicks in. Here, it's actually on the 10%. So there wouldn't be an order there because it's like, okay, which way is it going to break? It's going to break one way or the other. I don't know. And it basically closed right on that, so I wouldn't have an order in. All right, so here we closed above it. Or when it pushes below it, I'd put an order in here above it. So when we break back above it, I'd get in. And vice versa. Say we broke above it first before we pushed down, then I would have put an order in on that 10% for it to push down. So now, since we're above it, I'd put an order in if we break below it. All right, so that would have got me in. Probably didn't move to 2 points. Let's see, the low of that candle was 353.75. Would have been only 1 point. Oh no, the low is, wait. Yeah, it looks like, there we go, 353.75. So yeah, so that one have got me out. It would pull back, filled me, and then pushed up. So again, here it probably, I'm not sure if it opened down first or up. It maybe pulled up and then pulled down. And if it closed right there, I'd still be in this trade because it's only 2 points above. And then if it pushes down, obviously that would get me out. If it pushed up first, that definitely would have stopped me out. It would have hit my stop loss up there. But that's how I trade consolidation or chop. Here, technically we're below this candle, so I'd put an order in to go back up. Boom, that would have filled me. And now that we closed way up here, the 10%'s off the market. We closed above this 10% or the 0 line, big, huge candle. no more trading this chop here, because it's showing me, okay, now we broke out of that and we're not doing this anymore. So that's another way I trade the fibs. Do I trade one fib line more than the other? No. If there's this chop consolidation on any fib point, as long as it's not the extensions, I'll trade the way I just showed you. Now, once it hits up here, like here, we're close to the extensions, I'm waiting again for the break of the extension, and I'll play the extension plays. Like here, I would have played that 169, got into the downside, made some money there. So when we're in the extensions up here, I don't play consolidation. I'm looking for pullbacks off of this extensions. And if we're in the regular fibs, I'm looking for consolidation, and I'll play that the break of the line up and the break of the line down, and I'm just playing, quick 2 points, 2 to 3, 4 or 5 points is all I'm looking for. I'm not looking for home runs. So that's how I play that with the Fibonator. And then the last indicator I'm going to talk about will be, I don't think I have it here, do I? No, I don't. So it's on the invite only, and as you can see, I got a ton of them. But it's called the FIBS High-Low, I believe. Here it is. I believe this is, oops, not that one. This one here. So it's the FIBS High-Low indicator. And basically with this one, nope, that ain't it either. That's the wrong one. Maybe it was the other one I showed. Has to be. Must be this one. Okay, yeah, that's it. Let me look and make sure. Yeah. All right. So this one here, it's going to show higher highs, higher lows, lower highs, and lower lows. And you can determine if you don't want the higher highs, you're just looking for the higher lows and lower highs, because that's going to determine, hey, whether I'm going to look for a call or a put. You can just, have that on there that, okay, we created a higher high or a higher low here. More chances are we're going to push up. Around chop, you can might as well just forget about the high low stuff. Unless you want to try to determine, like for me, if I'm, remember that fib line was here. If I want to say, okay, we created a higher low, that means we're probably going to push up above that line. All right, now we actually create a lower low or a lower high. It means we're probably going to push back below that line. Okay, we have a higher high, a higher low. We're probably going to push back above that line. So, it may help with that, but I don't use that to trade when I do the consolidation. But this will, if you're having problems picking out higher lows and all that stuff, this could help you. Again, the length is going to determine how quickly it looks for the higher lows. Usually 3 or 4 are going to be pretty tight, about the same style. If you go further out, it's going to spread the higher lows and stuff out. It's not looking for them as tight. So I personally would leave it at 3 or 4, and it kind of gives you pretty much because technically this here would be it pull back at around that area should be a higher low down in here, and even then it's not showing it. But so 3 or 4 is probably your best bet on that one. If you want to draw lines on the specific higher high, higher lows, you could have it draw lines on that for you. It gives you that option. The zigzag, it'll draw a line from the higher low to kind of a zigzag pattern, if that's floats your boat. I also added the moving averages in here if you choose to want the moving averages. That's part of this indicator also. But that's all my indicators on there, and how I trade with them and use them. And again, if you're a member of the Trading Decoded Discord, these are included with your membership. If you just join for a free week, there's a temporary access to the indicators that you get a 7-day access to them so you can try them out when you're a temp access member. And you can do that. Once you join the Discord, you can go into how to get access. There's a link in there, and you go to the WAP, and it'll give you, that access. If you're a member of Trading Decoded, obviously it knows that. You basically have to sign into WAP with the same information that you signed up for the Trading Decoded Discord, and it'll register that, and it'll say, okay, you're a member, and you'll have access to it. If you don't have access, then either you did something wrong or signed up with a different name, and it won't give you the access to it, because you have to be a Trading Decoded member to get the access to these indicators. But that is how I trade with them, my indicators. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat below, comments below, or look me up in the Discord, and I'll get with you and we could talk about it. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm going to put timelines on the bottom if you trade a specific indicator, or you want to know more about an indicator, you forgot what I said about it or whatever. You should be able to just click on that and it'll take you to that specific indicator, if I can figure all that stuff out. Again, thanks for joining. If you're not a member, feel free to join Trading Decoded, or just come check us out. Y'all have a good one and be safe.